Welcome, Boris, to our podcast at very special moment for you and me.
Thank you.
We've been aiming to get together for quite some time, but timing is always a challenge. And I am very honored that you found the moment in your busy life and really decided to join me today.
Thank you so much. We're also live on my YouTube channel. So if anybody's watching, please make sure to subscribe on YouTube as well.
Everyone, if you haven't subscribed to Boris's channel, I want you to know this is how I discovered him. Boris is a wealth of information when it comes to accounting, something that I will be very honest with you, very foreign to me. I feel that we all naturally born with certain attributes. I think God sends each and every one of us here with certain characteristics that you come here and you'll do a certain chapter of your life. I will give you the skills, the mastery of sharing and pouring the gifts to others with certain characteristics. And I think Boris is gifted on that end, and Boris is a natural, organic accountant. Something that I could never, ever do. I'll be honest with you. I just could never do what you do. For $1,000,000, I just couldn't pour my mind and soul into it because it's just not something that God gifted me with. And I want to commend you and really honor you for being a master at it. So your channel is fully equipped with all the interesting...
Yeah, so I present a lot of tax strategies for business owners on YouTube channel. So
What's the channel?
Boris Musheyev, CPA.
So it's very easy.
Yeah, it's very easy. And then basically educate people or business owners how to pay less in taxes. So
When you're saying business owners, are you focusing only on business owners?
yes, the business model, my business model is to work with business owners, correct?
Why did you choose business owners only?
They have money.
I love it.
They have money to pay.
I love it. I love it. But before we actually go into the moment where people have money, you do know that I get a privilege of working with people that first begin
Yes.
their life.
Well, all the business owners do also just begin at some point. So
Right.
I'm very well aware, yes.
Well, you were one of them.
Correct.
And right before we began, I challenged your wife with that question. When you met Boris, was he always successful? And she was very honest, and she gave me a little tips how it all began, and true story. So do you want to share with everybody before we begin our professional side of the podcast? How did you start?
So when I was in college, I graduated Baruch College in accounting degree, and I did my internship in a nonprofit organization. It's a Jewish nonprofit, Med Council. But I always knew I wanted to do taxes. And people ask me, why do you want to do taxes? I'm like, well, first of all, I understand numbers. And number two, everybody in America has one thing in common. It's taxes. So like I felt like I'll never be out of job, so to speak. So I was a nonprofit, but I wanted to do taxes, so I needed to quit my job to go study for my CPA. And I'm not the type of a person that can go to work until 5 or 6 o'clock and can go to the library and study for another 5-6 hours. I can't do that. My brain can only work maybe 6 hours a day, like really focused work. So that's just, I've always been like this since school and everything. I already started dating my wife. And so we're talking, I think we're dating like a month. And I said, listen, I'm looking to quit my job. She's like, what? Why do you want to quit your job? You've got a nice, stable job. I told her about my goals and ambitions. Like I want to be a CPA. I want to have my own firm one day. I can't do this over here. And you know, in order for you to get your CPA, you need to be working under a CPA. So it's like there's a lot of things that I'm not doing that I'm supposed to. And then she's like, look, I really don't care, but I'm just curious. Like, how much do you make right now? Like, you know, like, what are you leaving?
Like every girl would ask that question.
I'm like, I make $40,000 a year. She's like, $40,000 a year? I'm like, she's like, wow, that's a lot of money. And I'm like,
How
we're
long
getting
ago was
married.
that?
This was what's right now, 2024. So this was 12 years ago.
Well,
When she said, that's a lot of money, 40,000. I'm like, that's it. We're getting married. You think 40,000 is a lot of money? I gotta talk to my papa. Like, we have to make this wedding quick.
before she changed your mind.
Nah, you know. So, anyways, I quit my job. She didn't have a problem with it at all. We actually continued dating. I was driving my father's minivan at that time. He paid for gas. I had some money saved up that I was using on our dates. And that's it. Like this, we basically went through our dating, and then I passed my CPAs. We already got married. I passed my CPAs. Then I started working. It was challenging because I didn't have a CPA experience. So I was literally knocking on doors to work for free. I was like, I'll figure out how to pay our rent. I just need somebody to hire me so they can show me the ropes of this field. because I was after college. I was really thrown into nonprofit. I worked in Met Museum, Met Council, Metropolitan Museum of Art in Manhattan.
Sure.
So I used to work there in that treasury. So I really have nothing on my resume that says this guy will be good in taxes. So nobody wanted to hire me. One guy in Brooklyn decided to give me a shot, and I was working at a job at that point. I basically quit that job and just went to that one to do taxes. And from there on, it was a struggle, of course, as well. But you just go through those struggles.
Persevere.
You fight through it. You persevere. Exactly, that's the right word. And then at some point, I already had my daughter, our third child, and I basically told my wife, I think I'm ready to quit. Because I already started doing this at home. People used to come. I used to do their taxes on our front porch, like in the foyer. And my wife used to bring them tea and cookies, while I do their taxes at night. And then I said, all right, I think I'm ready to go. She's like, okay. So I calculated all expenses. And I was short $800 a month. And I want to say this story because I want to give a shout out to a very important person. I was short $800 a month. I needed to start in October. By the time tax season starts in January, like I literally had no money to basically coming in. So my brother-in-law, my wife's brother, he used to work making deliveries. And I knew he made $200 a day.
Wow.
Making deliveries, tips, delivery fee, delivery service charge fee, whatever. He had worked 3 days a week. He's just a college student. I came up to him. I'm like, look, I know you make $200 a day. I said, I want one of your days to make deliveries. So because I'm short $800 and I need to pay for my daughter's daycare. I said, would you mind giving it to me until tax season starts, like 3 months? He, without a question, his college student, said, take it. So basically 1 day a week I was doing deliveries. So, I can basically set up my office. And that's it for 3 months. And he, by the way, now works with me already for 5 years.
Wow.
Yes.
You see, you get by giving.
Yes, he's now one of my top sales guys.
Wow.
In the
What
firm.
an interesting story.
Yeah, so he gave that to me. I'd never forget it because I needed to pay for the daycare. So so that's the story. And after that, we of course
Growing.
grew. Yeah.
I see your wife is very involved with you.
Yes, she's with me right now in the firm.
Did you train her to work with you too?
She needed no training. She's natural.
Amazing.
But she is a teacher by trade. She was a teacher in gymnasia, Jewish Institute of Queens, for many years. She was there a teacher. She basically taught the UPKs, like 4 or 5 year olds. So I kept telling her, come, let's do it. Let's still come with me. You're already kids driving you nuts at home. I mean, at school.
Right.
And it took me 2 years to convince her to come.
Wow.
She finally joined about 2 years ago. And she's been basically in the marketing side. Like people ask me, like, Boris, did you see me on social media and stuff? I'm like, I don't have it. I don't have it on my phone. She's like, what do you mean? But you're always on social media. I'm like, yeah, that's my wife handles it. Like she does that stuff.
You're just an actor.
Yeah, exactly. I just show up, I act,
and then you go.
Yeah.
To the next chapter.
Yeah.
Wow,
So,
what a fascinating story, Boris. I just want to say that from my experience and my practice and from the privilege and the blessing I have of interviewing people in the studio, I had really an opportunity to interview a lot of great business professionals. And one thing that I noticed that is super rewarding for many business owners is the significant other half as a true support rock system. And without that true support system, we can never be where we are today. So I want to give the really special thanks to your wife and for her to come here like an hour earlier and to get everything set up and to have people watching right now live on YouTube. Guys, I want you to know this is all the honor to Boris's wife, who actually came here earlier and
she did come before you and I.
I know, and got everything set up. So enjoy the show.
Yes, I told her, I'm like, Mariana, we're doing this thing today. I won't be able to make it. I have an appointment. Go before me, and
God
you're going
bless.
to need access to our accounts
God
to
bless.
set it up. Just go do it. She's like, okay.
But I just want to highlight something before we move on. I think this is a true definition and a great example to amazing girls out there that really will have the true zahut to trust in their wishes and visions of their significant other half. Because girls, a lot of times, want it now. And when the girls want it now, it is very challenging because it doesn't give a man the opportunity to have the vision to grow into something big and better that they have in their minds to create for the family.
You
And
mean
you see,
you mean they want it, meaning to say somebody who's already
Right. I mean, how many girls do you know right now that would allow their husbands to quit their job just so they have the opportunity to grow together? I don't know too many. I don't know about you. But that's another topic of conversation. We're going to leave it for later. Okay, I just want to say thank you to your wife for being there as your support system. Because she was a patient and she really was there as your rock to support you, she's now enjoying the opportunities that you both are part of, and you're enjoying that ride on the boat, I should say, on the journey where you are both accomplishing and trying to aim.
100%. I always tell her I don't think I would be able to do what I
Absolutely
do in the
not.
business if it wasn't for her.
Absolutely not.
Because it's, as a married couple, you've got kids and you've got a household and you've got this. And she wouldn't call me if I stayed late to work. Be like, hey, I've been changing diapers this whole week. It's your turn now. She would never talk like this, right? She would be like, listen, you just do what you have to do,
She comes from a very good family, I bet. So let's give a shout out to
All right, let's
her
do it.
family that raised her. Well, everybody, please continue to watch because we are diving deeper into some other fun stuff. So, Boris, please tell me, what's your vision for the next 5 years? I know that you went over a lot of different facts, how you started your humble beginnings, and you love working with business professionals because they have money.
Yeah.
What's your vision for the next 5 years? Let's dive deeper into where you are right now and your vision for the future.
We're going to leave it for later, Olga. We're making it too much biography about me. I think we're going to focus on helping people with finances and taxes.
All right. So the very first part that I'm personally getting into challenges to understand the difference between the C and S corporation. When you're getting into this chapter, how do you as an accountant define what's the right portion to delegate that moment of people's life as a business owner and direct them into either S or C corporations?
Okay. So when a person wants to start a business, for example, right? A lot of people think right away, I need to open up a corporation. I need to open up an S corporation, an LLC, whatever that may be. And unfortunately, when they speak to a lot of accountants direct them, open up this corporation, do this, get this EIN number. And then in many cases, for whatever reason, people's business doesn't do so well in the first year, or in many cases, it's also a side gig. But now they're stuck with this corporation, and they come to their accountant. Now, accountant says, I have to file paperwork for this. Now, accountants have to get paid extra. So what I usually tell people, if you've got a new business to start, you always just you can always start a business under your name. Nothing says that you need a corporation. The government allows you to still get your write-offs. You're not going to
Lose the privilege.
write-off. So always start on your name. Once you see, wow, this is serious, it's making some money, you can always open up an LLC and then become an S corporation. I'm not even talking about a C corporation because C corporation is there's a double taxation component to it, and it's just not it's not feasible for small business owner.
Boris, when a couple, let's say, just starting off, okay, it's a newlywed couple, they just starting to rent. In my case, they come to us, they just met each other, looking to have a wedding, they want to rent. Is there any benefits from rentals?
For people?
Tax write-offs, right?
There's no tax write-offs when you rent.
So if a person is renting an apartment,
Yes.
there is zero benefit
For
to write off?
taxes, yes.
Correct.
Unless you're a business owner and you're working from your apartment, then you can write off some of the rental and some of that stuff, rental, utilities, whatever that may be. But generally, if you're asking for a couple that's, let's say, doesn't have a business, they're renting out, and they have a question in front of them. Should I buy or should I rent? Right? So rental, everything that you pay for rent, there's no write-offs. When you buy, you've got benefits of writing off mortgage interest and property taxes.
So is it safe to say that if anyone is renting right now, it's money in the garbage?
I don't know. It depends. I'll tell you why I say it depends. Even though people think, hey, just because I'm going to buy and that money is not going to the garbage. That is true. But there is also a lot more expenses with sale. That's my personal opinion, right? It really depends in which stage of their lives people are to either buy or rent. If people can afford it and they can buy a house, then it's most likely better because you're building equity and appreciates in value. A lot of times what happens is that people are always in a crunch and they live paycheck to paycheck. So in that case, would buying make sense for them? Would it deliver tax benefits to offset the extra expenses? Like let's say, for example, somebody buys a condo or a co-op, right? Forget the house. there's maintenance that you have to pay. And in New York, for example, maintenance is probably at least $1,200. And you're paying for one bedroom $1,900, but now you're paying maintenance $1,200. That's like you paying rent on top of your mortgage, on top of your property taxes. So there's extra expense with that. Does it make sense for you to buy? It really depends on everyone's situation. In most cases, I say if people can afford it, they should buy because they're building equity and they can afford that. And eventually, in the long run, it is a beneficial. Does that kind of answer your question?
Of course. With interest rates being so high, do you recommend people save money to buy and stay in their rentals and really be comfortable with payments? Or do you feel like going with FHA loans and going with like 3 to 5% down payments? Would it be something on your approved list?
Yeah, so with interest rates this high right now, it also depends who's looking to buy. If it's somebody, if we're talking about business owner that has money, that has capital, that has good cash flow, they want to live in a house. That's everyone's appetite is different. But yes, interest rates are very high right now. And people that can't afford it or live paycheck to paycheck thinking that, hey, I will borrow money, especially, when it comes to construction, they borrow money for a down payment. But the job today may not be as stable as yesterday. Right. I've actually spoken to somebody yesterday, a good friend of mine who actually is going through this right now. Has a nice house, has everything, and he was able to afford all of it until something happened at the job. And the high interest rates don't make it easy.
Correct.
So it really depends.
We are so looking forward to those interest rate drops.
Do you think it's going to happen now?
Definitely.
Now that we've got the elections behind us?
Yes, definitely. So let's see what happens.
So real estate market is going to boom now for you.
Well, we actually did pretty well during Trump presidency when the rates were 2, 3, 4, 5%. We did really, really well.
Yeah.
And even during the COVID and after COVID, before the rates started to go to like 7 to 8% rates. Actually, yesterday I had a closing. A buyer closed on a deal 7.75%. This is really, really high for somebody who's buying $1 million house on top
residential home.
Residential home. So imagine the taxes, the insurance, the utilities, and the mortgage.
It's a $1 million purchase price or $1 million mortgage?
Purchase price.
So how much was the mortgage?
Significant. I mean, they put close to 30% down
30%.
because they were investors.
I see.
But it's
because even for the individuals right now, right? Like, for example, a couple that goes buys a house and they want to say, hey, I want to save money on taxes. They should know that there's limitation how much your mortgage can be.
Correct.
So if you take a $1.5 million home, you can't deduct the entire mortgage interest on it.
So the cap is what, $10,000?
No, that's property taxes you're talking about. I'm talking about the interest that you pay on the mortgage. So if your mortgage is more than $750,000, you can only deduct interest up to $750,000. So there's a whole calculation involved on the tax return, how it's done. And then the property tax are only at $10,000. So that's why I was asking you, like your buyer bought a $1 million purchase, like how much was the down payment? So in this case, if a 30% down payment, that the entire mortgage interest is deductible. Right.
It's so much to learn from you. Everyone should definitely follow your channel because you are talking in depth in all these details. So now the couple, let's say, purchased a property. It's their first residential home.
Okay.
And they're saving money. And eventually, they are talking to you about investments.
Yeah.
Right? Do they come to you for an advice and you kind of like an accountant advising them, now it's the right time or right now it's not the right time? To what degree and point you would direct them to stay still and continue to save, or you would tell them, okay, I think now the way your income is going and I see how much you're making, because if one thing people cannot hide from you is their true income.
That is true.
All right. So to what?
No, you'll be surprised. Sometimes they
manage
still
to
hide it somehow.
So to what point you directing them to start investing? And what do you direct them to start investing?
That's a great question you're asking. I'll tell you why. Because a lot of times when a couple goes through this whole process, they get married from, like you said, from renting, they now buy a house, they establish themselves, they build some capital, now they're making money, and there's some extra cash in their account, $50,000, $100,000. People get $20,000, $30,000, they're already thinking,
So don't blow vacations?
Some do, unfortunately, right? Or sometimes people see $10,000 in their bank account, but they put $30,000 on their credit card. Unfortunately, right? It happens a lot. But there's also situations where couples actually want to do smart thing with their money. And if anybody that does not do smart thing about their money, I think people know also when they're not doing smart thing about. I think it's inherent in all of us. Like I've just seen a lot and I've heard a lot, and the way that the American society is, like if you read enough books and about the American society and how it's made, it's all built on
Credit.
hype, credit. So a person that makes a $70,000 salary lives like they make $200,000, you know? And I think deep down people know that problem about themselves. Like if you listen to Dave Ramsey, like
Right.
if those shorts come up, he's like, "You make how much? And how much is your car?" And almost every day he gets that, right? And we this is how we are.
You're right.
And I think that and the reason I'm bringing this up is because not everybody's financially educated.
So the appetite grows.
The appetite grows. And people that are not financially educated, the most, in my opinion, what I've seen, people in medical field. Doctors, especially.
Really?
Doctors, dentists, anybody in medical
Not
field.
realtors?
Realtors, what I've seen, right? And I'll tell you why they're not financial. I have a reason for it. It's not that I'm putting them down, God forbid. It's because my brother went to medical school. He's now doing residency. And I see what he went through in medical school. Their mind is passing the medical school. It's just so much work there. You have no time to think about or be educated about anything else. You have no time to listen to a podcast. You have no time to read a book. So when they come out, they're like the most basic stuff. They like have no idea. It's not that they're not smart people. They're very smart and very capable if they finish medical school. I don't know. Anybody that finishes medical school, I feel like they're like,
Genius.
my God. And people look at me like, no, you genius, you know the numbers. I'm like, believe me, you're over here. I know we went from the couple that's getting married and asking for financial advice to this because it kind of preludes to that.
Correct.
So people in medical profession, right? And I was saying that people know when they have a financial problem, or people like, don't have a financial problem. Let's say that they make very well. They still, let's say, overspend, but they're not in debt. But everybody at any stage, I feel like based on my experience and speaking to people, they know they have that financial problem.
Course.
And everybody feels like, I wish I knew more.
Right.
If somebody showed me, if somebody educated me, you probably spoken to people like, I wish I could budget.
Right.
Right? I wish I could budget or whatever. It's really doesn't, I personally tried to budget many times. Personally, it never worked. Okay? I think it just requires discipline.
Yes.
It just requires discipline.
To say no at the right time.
To say no at the right time and knowing exactly what you need to spend exactly.
Do I need it or do I want it?
That's the biggest one, right? Do I need it? Do I want it? A lot of times right now is because do I want it? I feel like, right? If we feel in this, we live in this era.
The urge.
Yeah, like Amazon. Like it's on the tip of your thumb, right?
Right.
To place things on order. I'm saying because we're guilty of it also. Like,
of course.
I'm also lacking a financial education. Like I have to some degree. I'm an accountant. People are like, you? I'm like, of course. You have to be able to realize that, hey, there's certain areas in my life I need education. So I feel like when a couple coming back to us where they have savings now, they got 10, 20, 30,000. And sometimes I get pretty good clients and couples that are really like thinking like, look, I want a financial education. Can you give me financial education? Like, where should I spend? So I always tell, look, I'm not an investment advisor. I can't tell you go open this brokerage account or go buy this. But what I can tell you is what you can do from the tax perspective. And people come to me like, should I buy real estate? Right? Which is up your alley. Like I tell them, first call Olga. No, I'm kidding. No, they come and say real estate. I hear a lot of things. I can get write-offs and all of this stuff on real estate.
Right.
So now, again, people have some money and appetite is opening up a little bit, right? So like they want to do something, which is applaudable because they want to have that financial stability and shelter, whatever that is. Everybody's different.
Right.
So I tell them, look, despite what you hear out there, when you buy a rental property, you're going to, like, what is your goal, right? There's two goals people can have. It's either they want it to appreciate in value.
Right.
And that's all. Like, Boris, I can just break even. I'll be happy because I know in 20 years this will be worth another 100,000 and I'll make my 100,000 in 20 years.
Correct.
I'll put it in my kids' college.
Right.
Some people can actually use it as a what is it? A vehicle, financial vehicle for their kids' college.
Right. The equity.
The equity, exactly. The fact that this investment property, or some people want a tax break, or some people want both. These are two different things. So I asked them, what is your goal? I feel like I want a tax break because I work on a W-2. All my money is obviously, it's like I make all this money, and I pay a lot of money on taxes. So I want to buy a real estate to get a tax write-off. So my goal is not depreciation, they say, but I want a write-off. This is where I educate them and be like, unfortunately, we have this law that says that any real estate, and in general, if we take a step back, why do you want to invest in real estate, Olga? Your clients probably invest in real estate, developers and investors, is
Yes.
because they want tax benefits. Because generally, a good investment produces a good cash flow for you. Cash flow meaning to say every month you see paid like money from it, but on paper it produces a loss because of a depreciation, where basically a property gets depreciated, it adds to your expenses, and you get a loss. That loss, I tell those couples, is not tax deductible because it's a passive loss. You can't deduct the passive loss unless you have any other passive income. So people, when they want to start with their first property, I take them through this. I educate them. Right? I say, but you've got an appreciation, you've got a positive cash flow. You may not take the loss, but you don't have any taxable income. You get it?
So breaking even.
It's more than breaking even. There is a loss. It's just being carried forward to the future.
Right.
They're like, okay, what if I take the same $100,000 instead of putting 20% down payment on a residential property, I buy stocks. Okay, so let's just say, safely speaking, with S&P 500 index, you'll make like 10% a year, right? That 10%, you're going to make $10,000. That $10,000 will now be taxable to you. Whereas the same 10% that you've made on a real estate investment, it is not taxable to you. Why? Because it has depreciation, even though you can take losses. That's why I tell people, look, I'm going to tell you right now, you may not benefit from losses. It just gets carried forward. So it depends who is in what bucket. Then they say, well, Boris, but you're a tax strategist, so how do I make it deductible? Right? So I said, okay, so there is, just like with everything, IRS has a lot of loopholes, okay? Thankfully. That's why Donald Trump pays $600 on his, 2007, 2006, and 2007 taxes or something like that. So a lot of people don't realize.
Right.
The man who knows how to play the game.
Absolutely.
The man knows how to write off depreciation.
Right.
He said it in his debate with Hillary Clinton.
Right.
She's like, you don't pay any taxes. He's like, thanks to you. Right? Something.
You're
he was
allowing
doing.
me.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, it's your fault. I'm not in Congress making these laws. You make these laws for me.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And so a lot of people say, why did Donald Trump pay so little in taxes? Well, he took advantage of all the depreciation. Buying real estate and writing it off, and at the same time, he had loss carryovers. The government allows you to carry over your losses from the other business adventures that he had.
Right.
So how do we get to the Trump and the real estate? Give me a second. Oh, so people's
Write-offs.
right? Loopholes,
Write-offs.
write-offs, yes. So the people's like, of course, how do I make it deductible? You say you can, right? So if you go to an accountant, by the way, and this is for everyone that's watching, if your accountant is telling you can't write this off, you have to ask
Call
them.
Boris.
No, well, that's, of course.
You have to go through qualification process.
That's it. But you have to say, well, how can I make it deductible? Because everything can be deducted, right? To some extent. We're not going to say, oh, live a tax-free life right off your entire life.
Right.
But if you strategize properly and speak to your tax advisor, and hopefully if you're a business owner, you are really working with a tax advisor, you can make things right off.
Right.
Okay? So then I tell them, all right, great. Short-term rentals in the IRS code do not follow these passive losses rules where these losses are not deductible. If you meet certain qualification that your property qualifies as a short-term rental under the IRS code, then guess what? We can deduct those losses. If we can do a nice depreciation, cost segregation study, whatever. Just I'm naming terms, but these are the strategies that you can use to increase your accelerated depreciation, get you a nice deduction, and now that's deductible. Actually save the client from buying a real estate property. Because I said, it's not going to work for what you want to do. And they're like, yeah, I told my wife we're not buying it because Boris said no.
So you like Susie Orman? You like Susie Orman, when she does not allow you to spend more money than you earned. And she approves it or rejects it, denied.
Well, I'm on the tax side.
Right.
And usually I try not to tell people what to do. Because I'm never in a position, or I never want to be in a position to tell them, okay, do this, don't do this. I'm like, look, I'm giving you options. These are your options, and then you make an educated decision.
I will share with you a little piece of what I do with my clients.
Let's do it.
I have a lot of clients that reach out to me sometimes, and they just not ready. They're either not ready with income, they're not ready with savings, or they're just not ready mentally, emotionally. They just maybe have the money but can't depart from it because they are getting into that fear of disconnection of security and safety. I have very different types of clientele, and every single one is in different emotional and mental capacity to accept and digest information. So I'm in a very similar position like you, just from a different angle. A lot of times people come to me and say, hey, I want to buy a co-op. I only show income of $50,000. I want to buy $500,000.
Where's the rest of the income?
Right.
Where is it?
And so it's not going to get approved. Oh, can I get a co-signer? No. So if you only, let's say, save $50,000 or have $50,000 income, you have 3 children, you have a rental, you have a lifestyle, you have weddings, you have vacations. How are you going to prove to the board that you could sustain and afford this lifestyle? So I'm sorry to say this, the answer is no.
Can I ask you a question on this?
Yes, of
There are
course.
situations where I know where people don't have the income, or they don't show it for whatever reason, right?
Right.
That's a topic for another day.
Right.
They don't have the income on the tax return to show, for example. I've heard this. And they still able, or not even that. Let's say it's somebody who does have income and does show everything, but it's their first year, or they just got a job. And they're still able to take out a loan. There are some banks that allow it.
Student, as a student, you can show that you were in school, and you could still get a loan, as long as it shows.
And if you're not a student, if you really have a low income, are there banks that...
There is many different programs. There's many different bankers, mortgage brokers.
So there's hope for people.
There is people that, I will tell you this. When I see people with very good financial behavior, I would totally lead them through the process, and actually I will convince them to buy. Because I know that if they don't, then it will not lead them in the future to the right pattern of financial behavior. Okay?
So you're educating them.
Correct.
Good.
Well, this is how
We're on the same page.
Correct.
Right? But it's just that what I'm saying is that I try very hard not to tell people exactly what to do. I give them educational options. Very often it makes sense not to do it a certain way when you, like you said, when you put that in an educational perspective, like with an education.
Correct.
Yeah.
But I think our mutual goal for Boris, I just want to put it out there. Nobody is paying you and me for this time that we are putting out there into the air right now.
And not to say they were 1 hour late.
Correct. There is technical difficulties, right?
Whatever.
Just because we wanted to go live.
Well, that's what they want to say?
Absolutely.
Okay. I'm kidding.
But in the end of the day, I just want the public to understand that we are doing this because we really have the gift to learn and to share. And it's unconditional love from what we do, pouring it into the public and making sure that people will learn to do the right thing for the future, right?
Yeah.
So going back into our investments, right?
Yeah, I also want to touch upon that.
Sure.
So what you just said, that we are sharing it, and people have certain gifts, and I guess you and I have a certain talent, for example, to sit in this room and to educate. I think we also have to be very mindful of the fact that all of these gifts and talents are God-given.
100%.
And people want to share it. Like, for example, I love to share, I love to educate people. Like you said last time, Boris, why don't we do something for the youth and maybe educate them something about business or something like that? I said, of course, let's do it.
Right.
So you're a giving person, and I like to also educate and give. And that is because when we are blessed with God-given talent, something good that God does for us, for example, then yes, you naturally want to give because you recognize it.
Correct.
And I think that a lot of people that are amazing people, and they have amazing talents, but sometimes they keep it to themselves. And I think that everybody should be on the giving side when it comes to this.
100%.
I just wanted to add that since you mentioned it, but
Of
we can now
course.
continue with the
Of
taxes
course.
and stuff.
You told me, Olga, we're not motivational speakers.
Yeah, I told you, keep the motivational stuff down. But this is not motivation. This is like true life, right? So like
Yes.
it's no, what I told you, and we're going to be very transparent with our audiences, right?
Right.
What I told you before we did this podcast, I said, Olga, I don't want to do this podcast and seem like you and I like on top of the world, and we're like this super successful, and we're like they were these life coaches and life gurus. That's not what
We're
it is.
not. Right.
We're just sharing our humble experiences, and
Right.
I'm basically giving credit to the Almighty for blessing us with this, and that we can share it with the world.
Absolutely. Listen, I don't have the gift of singing. Otherwise, I would be singing all day. But I do feel like I have the gift of getting the information, processing it for myself, implementing it into life, and learning how the outcome will be, and then pouring it into those that I think will benefit from it. And
How do you feel about pouring it into those that are not receptive?
they will get there. They're not there yet. We just need to pull them like a magnet and really show them that everything is possible. Okay? I think that God gave us the opportunity to pray, meditate, and hope, because without hope, there is no future. Okay? And when we pull those that are not open-minded yet, if that's where you're going,
Yeah.
I think it's only a matter of time until they give in,
Yeah, but how much time are you willing to put into that?
until it's done, until they are on board. And if they're missing the boat, let it be. Because one day, if they're going to continue to be open-minded, to really work on themselves, okay, and continue to work on themselves, to learn, to study, to read, to listen, to become better every day. Like I told you earlier today, my brain is like a sponge. If I didn't learn something every single day new, to me, it's a waste of day. So I used to think that everyone is wired the same, but we recently had an episode with my very good friend Milana, who is very big on numerology, where she really dissected this into the point where she taught me that every single one is born with different attributes, and every single one came into this world with different gifts. So that's when I shifted away from thinking that everybody should be like me. Everybody should be learning the same way. And if they don't, I used to get very aggravated, very frustrated, but I'm learning to let it go. And I think that's where the challenge comes in, to really learn and understand that every single one is gifted differently, and give them time to process, because one day they'll get there.
But they have to want to get there.
You nailed it.
They
Yes.
have to want to get there, because
Correct.
at some point, I feel like you, as a person that's giving and want to help, at some point you just call it quits.
Yes.
Because
Step back.
because the person just like, he's not.
Coachable?
If everybody will get there at some point, right?
Right.
Because everybody has a timeline
Right.
that God made for them
Correct.
to get there, right? But if the person is not helping themselves,
Reciprocating.
not only reciprocating, I found that in my experience, that's in my humble opinion, but just in my experience in life in general, whether it's personal, business, whatever it is, you can never help somebody
If they don't want
who
to be
doesn't
helped.
want to help themselves. It's
1
the
million
worst thing you can do for yourself.
Absolutely.
And for that person, when you're trying to help somebody and they don't want to help themselves.
So I have news for you. Keep the gates open. Allow them to welcome and come into our world.
Right.
And then when they sazreют, when they get to that point, what did I tell you earlier?
When they ripen up, ripen up,
Correct.
you mean?
What did I tell you earlier? I said to you, Boris, I'm mesmerized by your connection with God, because I see how you and your wife on the same boat in relation to God. I'm not there. I'm nowhere close to being there, but I'm very spiritual. This is why I surround myself with spiritual people.
I think when you say you're not there, I think we're all there on our own levels.
You making it look like it's easy.
Oh, so we talked about this. It is never easy.
I attended Emmett event. That's
Yeah.
where we met.
Yes.
And I've seen you and my cousin Rafael Zakinov
Right.
with his wife, where you guys started from together and where you guys right now. And I believe you only achieved that level of success because you surrender yourself to be very open and truthful to prayers and being closer to God. Because when we pray and meditate, somehow our prayers get answered.
100%. I don't think a person that believes in God should aim for success without relying on God.
He's the guiding force.
He's the guiding force. He's everything. He provides you with faith. He provides you with strength. There's a purpose to what you're doing, right? That you wake up every day with a purpose to do whatever it is that you need to do. And like you said, prayer is the most powerful thing that a person can have.
Do you think God gifted you with the abilities to do what you do?
I think we're all gifted with our own abilities, yes. So like every person, there's a person that is good at a certain thing. Doctors, they're doctors because God gave them the ability. Accountants is because God gave them that ability. 100%. We all have our talents because God gave it. So I do believe that what I have, these abilities that you describe, and you make me look like a superstar all the time. We'll do these videos with you. But yeah, it is all gift from God, 100%.
I also observe a lot of people around me to see what they do. I will tell you this, that I truly feel and believe that each and every person is passionate and born naturally with certain attributes. I'm going to go back, let's say, to investors and builders for me in my world.
Yeah.
Because throughout this past couple of years, with interest rates and the market and the consumer confidence, I should say, right? Through this past 4 years, the consumer confidence was not in a very stable level. And seeing a lot of investors work through the moments of where they still continue to have that drive to work with building department, to work with all these tax challenges. Zoning laws, right? Zoning laws are changing all the time, okay? And for them to persevere and to continue to really build and to continue to go now vertical, right? We don't have any more land. And I talk about it all the time. I want people to understand, we live in New York City. The land that we have, we only work with so much land that we have.
That's available.
Right? That's available. Now the zoning laws are changing to the point where now we have the ability to build vertical. And do everybody understand what they have and utilize that to go high up? And what builders are going through when they are in a position to get the permits and go through building department challenges. I mean, you've seen it day in, day out. Your clients, I'm sure, also going through those challenges and they share them with you. Don't you feel like it requires certain character?
100%. I have a lot of friends in different businesses, in different industries, in different businesses, right?
Right.
And everybody's going through something different. And somehow, to everybody, God caters, right? In his own way. Like, for example, you are in real estate, but yet you are doing here a podcast. Do you see many real estate brokers doing a podcast?
No.
Right? So, like, you really think about it. So that means that even though you're in real estate, and it's not really what you should be doing right now, you should be out there showing.
Prospecting.
Right? Prospecting, calling, and showing, but you're here, and yet somehow God takes care of you.
Correct.
And that's because you're using your talents for what God gave you, and then you're educating other people, and you're doing this podcast. So, yeah, everybody I know a lot of people in different businesses. I'm doing it like this now. I feel like a Donald Trump, you know? So I have friends like in different businesses, and you know, God caters to all of them in their own ways, and they have their own talents.
Right. Well, in the end of the day, Boris, there is so much people can learn, right?
Yes,
Where do you
100%.
get your wisdom from?
Wisdom.
From
In
learning.
terms-
Like, how do you grow yourself in your field? What do you do every day?
So it's been a long
How do
journey.
you improve your skills?
Yeah. So there's technical skills and there's personal skills, right? So
Right.
I'm guessing
Let's
you're
talk about
asking about the
professional.
personal growth, right? Personal growth or professional?
Professional.
Professional in terms of my work with like taxes and
Yes.
accounting.
Yes. What do you personally do? Who do you follow? Who do you listen to?
I'm not sure I hear your question.
How do you stay motivated?
Okay, so that's more like professional growth, personal growth.
You could touch upon whichever
Yeah.
one is more suitable.
Okay. I'm just trying to understand how to answer your question. So how do I stay motivated?
Yes.
Well, like I was saying in the beginning, it's been a very long journey to be on the path to have a positive outlook,
Correct.
and that is to always be positive.
Right.
And you hear a lot of people say, "Be positive."
Correct.
It is not something that can happen overnight. You have to work on it.
It's like muscle.
It's
You gotta
brain
build
is
it.
a muscle, right?
Right.
I mean, it's not a muscle, but it's like a muscle. You understand? And I think that a person has to, number one, surround himself with positive people. If they don't have positive people to surround themselves, they at least should distance themselves from negative people. I would say that is the most important thing. I would say that is the first thing I did in my life years ago, is to basically surround myself. If I can surround myself with just positive, at least distance myself from negativity. And then self-improvement. I also learned a lot from my rabbi, who has also taught me a lot about self-development, self-growth, personal
Patience?
growth, patience for sure. I learned from him,
We
right?
talked
So
about it.
yeah, so I combined what I learned with my rabbi with, of course, what I learned from the outside world as well,
Right.
where you need that professional development and you need to push forward. You never should give up. There's a lot of obstacles, and a lot of things will put a lot of people down. I'll try to, and
Right.
everybody goes through this. We're all human. I think we're all going through the same thing. It's just the way it's catered to you is just different. You know,
Right.
the difficulties that you go through or the challenges in the business world, same challenges that I'm going through. It's just catered to me differently,
Correct.
right? That's your test.
Right.
Can you overcome it? Recently, I was speaking at Baruch College to a group of like 20 students, and I also shared them my story that I shared with you in the beginning. I actually went a little more deeper than that, and one guy was like, and then he's like, I told him a little more details about how I was trying to find a job, internship, how I was knocking on doors, because these students going through the same thing. And then one guy is like, Boris, like, why didn't you give up then? Like, I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, well, looks like you had it so hard. I'm like, did I say it was hard? He's like, well, everything you said, it's so hard to go through. I'm like, if I made it sound hard, I didn't mean to, but it's just the way of life.
Right.
And then he's like, but why don't you just give up? I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, well, everything was going against you.
Right.
I'm like, and I said, well, what is there for me to go back to?
Nothing.
Nothing. So then the only way forward
To keep
is
pushing
to
forward.
push through.
Right.
He's like, I'm like, well, what do you think I should have done? He's like, well, you could have just continued doing deliveries in the brother-in-laws. I'm like, would you do deliveries? I'm like, is this something you want for the rest of your life? He's like, no, but you had it, like you had all these challenges. I'm like, well, that's part of life.
Persevere.
I'm like, did you hear me like complain? I didn't complain. I was just kind of sharing that, right?
Right.
So I'm like, there's nothing to go back to. So that's why a person has to surround themselves with positive people that they can learn from. My wife and I always joke around, like when we meet new people and new couples and we have Shabbat with them, we invite them or they invite us. And I always say this to them. I'm like, we want to be friends with you. They're like, oh, that's so nice. I'm like, we want to be friends with you for selfish reasons. Like, what do you mean? I said, that's because we want to learn from you. Like,
Wow.
you're like in a great couple and want to spend more time with you at the Shabbat or the kids get together, It's like you've got to learn from other people. You have to pick on their good things and learn from them. We all
Right.
have some, maybe negative things about ourselves, whatever that is. But like, that's what, like, my wife and I always joke like this, like with them, like, if we spend Shabbat, like, we want to be friends with you for selfish reasons, right? So that's because you've got to learn from others. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. So how do I keep myself like that, like you say, motivated every day? It's hard. There are days that I'm not motivated. We're only human being.
Do you ever wake up in a bad mood?
No, I taught myself not to ever wake up in a bad mood. A new day is a new day.
Another
That's it.
opportunity.
Yes, sometimes it's hard to wake up on a bad day because you know what awaits you.
Right.
I read this book. I'll give it a shout out to, his name is Jonas Howard. For those of you that don't know, you can look him up. He is a Jewish person. He owns a company on the exchange. His company is called IDT. I was at his house for Melava Malka a few years ago, and he apparently wrote a book. It's called On the Roll. He talked about his life, how he went from basically also from like selling hot dogs to like having a company, on the exchange. And he used to tell his wife, I read it in his book, which by the way, I learned a lot from it. And he was telling his wife, I'm going out to battle Goliath today. Right? So like I wanted to quote him because I don't want to take a credit for this. But every day you wake up to go battle Goliath, right? It's David versus Goliath. So you wake up. I taught myself not to ever wake up in a bad mood. But it doesn't mean that the day is hard. And it's like you wake up so cheery. You don't have to be so cheery when you wake up, but you don't have to wake up in a bad mood. You just have to realize that today's another day I've got to battle Goliath. Today's another day I just have to go out and and kick butt and, do the best. And I've also learned that I've learned this. It took me a while to learn this. You've got to do something that is will give you fulfillment that day. So like whatever it is, for people it's different thing. For me, it's like, for example, praying and learning in the morning, right? So for me, I feel like I had a productive day. If all else fails, like I've prayed and I've learned in the morning, like
Good.
Like if all else fails, because I did what's for me is an
Correct.
important part of my life.
So you fulfill yourself first.
Right. So for me, that's it, right? For some people, it could be, I don't know, whatever it is. Maybe they can start making breakfast for their kids and they feel like, put a smile on their kids before they send them out to school. That's a big achievement, right? So you've got to do something that fulfills. But waking up in a bad mood, never. Don't have to be in a great mood, but like don't start your day with that, because then your entire day will be that. So because you're going out to battle Goliath and you just have to wake up, today's another battle.
Excellent. Boris, going back to real estate investments, I'm just curious. What other types of assets do you recommend your clients to invest while they are looking to diversify and not have all their eggs in the same basket?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So again, we're not giving any financial advice here. I'll just kind of talk about what we're doing with our clients. So I never tell my clients what to invest in. I just most like educate them. And I educate them from the tax perspective. So people come to me, what's the best investment? It's like, I don't know. But I can tell you what will make the most tax benefit for you, right? So because I work with a lot of business owners, we start with retirement accounts. Some people want it, some people don't want it. Some people have different feelings. That's okay. Most of the people want it. They want to build their retirement. And so they put money away into the retirement from their paycheck, from their business. They get a really nice tax write-off. Then there are people that want to invest in real estate. And then I walk them through the tax benefits. It has a lot of tax benefits, by the way. Just because I said earlier that you can take real estate losses, you can. If you position yourself financially, you and your wife, one of you has let's say a business, another one just does real estate, all of those real estate losses may now be deductible against your other spouse's income. That's another form of investment. What I've recently seen in the past couple of years with interest rates being so high, people also go into alternative investments, right? So oil and gas investments. People like to invest in oil and gas. So it's basically drilling and oil and gas that you invest in. There's what's called IDCs, intangible drilling costs, which have a very favorable status, so to say, in the IRS tax code, which allows you to take a really nice deduction. So whatever you invest, you can get a very nice big chunk of deduction of your investment as a deduction on your tax return. And plus those investments pay you back. So recently they've been paying back pretty good dividends, at least the clients that my clients invested in. So it really depends. Everybody, some people go to cryptocurrency. I like to go in the places where it makes sense from the tax-wise, because that's where I specialize in.
Right.
I can't tell people invest in this or invest in this fund or whatever that may be. So it's been interesting to see that the real estate investments had slowed down a little bit. I think Florida is not doing so well with real estate right now. I've spoken to a friend of mine whose name is also Olga, and she is a real estate agent there, and she said, yeah, it's been challenging. So because of the interest rates, people do look in other avenues. But again, it depends. For everybody, it's different. Some people just want to invest, and that's what they want to do. And some people want to get a tax benefit.
Boris?
Duh. Tell me.
The secret with real estate, you buy and you sit and you wait. Because organically, I've been doing this for over 20 years now. I've never seen anyone buy real estate and lose. Just never seen it. It's maybe because I'm very good at qualifying.
Yeah, no, but it also depends on your goals, right?
Right.
So some people can buy and sit and wait, like you said. Some people don't want to sit and wait.
Right.
They want to invest.
Right.
They want to have a cash flow from it.
Right.
Or a lot of people that I work with, their motivation is tax breaks.
Right.
So this is where, you're right. In most
I think
cases,
we should have a master class.
Yeah, we definitely can.
We should have university,
we have a lot of,
Musheyev University.
We have a YouTube channel is free of all of that stuff that I put out there. And it's funny because people don't realize everything that I put on YouTube channel is what I do for my clients. It's like I have no secrets. If whatever I educate people about on YouTube channel is what I do for my clients.
Amazing.
It's the exact same thing. Yeah.
How do you feel about commercial real estate? So let's pretend a couple went from renting to buying a house. Then now they have 1 or 2 investment properties. And eventually now, maybe it's time to go and buy a commercial real estate. Let's dive deep into that.
Okay.
What's the tax benefits if someone invested into commercial real estate? And let's pretend that they occupying a quarter of the building and the rest they renting out.
As a business owners that occupying
Correct.
it. Okay. So I think you're leading to area where a business owner is, there's a self-rental.
Correct.
There's a huge tax strategy with self-rental. But if I can just touch on commercial real estate
ahead.
without a self-rental at first. So I think commercial real estate is a great strategy for anybody, whether you're a business owner or not. If, again, you have the means and you can afford it, and it can be a great financial security for you in the future. Why I say that? Because in most cases, commercial real estate produces a very nice cash flow from the rent roll and so forth. It's way better than having a residential property. In
Is
most
it
cases,
taxed
in
totally
general.
different?
No, it's taxed the same, but because you have a bigger rent roll, bigger income, for example, the depreciation that you take on that property, plus the cost segregation, I can talk about what cost segregation is in a second, can really wipe out most of that income, at least in the first year. And really, you end up paying almost no taxes on it. That's why you hear a lot of people say, oh, well, if you invest in real estate, you pay no taxes. Yes, but you have to, it doesn't apply to everyone, right? You've got to work with a tax advisor and really put the numbers together. You'll know exactly what you're going to write off and how much you're going to pay taxes, or even no taxes on that. Now, what is cost segregation? I keep saying it about the depreciation. So, Olga, let's say you, for example, you're a real estate broker.
Right.
By regular rules, everybody should know this, that when you have a rental real estate, commercial, all of those are deducted, right? When you buy a $2 million commercial property or any property, residential or commercial, some people think, I'll buy real estate, dollar write-off. That's not the case, right? You're buying an asset, and generally assets are depreciated. So commercial real estate, that is your annual tax deduction. You get
Can
it,
you
right?
go back to this? You said 39.
You did warn me you're going to do this. Commercial property, I'm going to go slower. Commercial. According to the IRS table, 39 years. So IRS says, look, if you're going to buy a commercial property for $2 million right now, it doesn't mean you get it. It's fully written off.
So no more write-offs.
No, for the depreciation part of it. Years, whatever that number will be, I don't know, am I allowed to pull out a calculator here? Whatever that number may be, in years, you'll be taking a write-off until it adds up to $2 million, and now you fully wrote off your property. There's another piece in the IRS code, so to speak, that says just because you bought a commercial property doesn't mean components of assets, other classes of assets, what IRS likes to call. So it has carpentry, it has wiring, it has woods, whatever that is, whatever that may be. So the IRS says you're allowed to go into this property and break down those assets into different useful lives.
Right.
You know, because some things in the IRS code can last only 5 years, not 39 years.
Right.
10 years, 7 years, 15 years.
Right.
So 15 is actually a magic number. Why? Because any assets that are under 15 years, depreciation.
Wow.
As the law currently stands, you can write off 60% of that stuff. So another same example, $2 million property, roughly speaking, I'm just going to say roughly speaking, 30% of it, generally speaking, will qualify for a cost segregation. That means assets in that is under 15 years. That means you get a bigger write-off.
Wow.
So that's why when somebody wants to buy a commercial real estate, we say, hey, sure, that's a great idea. Let's speak to your tax advisor. What is your rent roll? What will depreciation be? And how much will you benefit from taxes after taking that big depreciation in the first year and the next year? That's how a lot of people who invest in real estate and make real estate their main focus, so to speak, right? They pay no taxes.
That's the secret.
Yeah, well, Donald Trump paid, what do we say, like $600, I think it was, or $500, whatever that is.
So that's because of all the commercial real estate he owns?
Well, he's a real estate professional by definition.
Wow.
Okay, so I'm assuming he is because that's what he owns. So IRS says, by my definition, you are a real estate professional. That means all the losses that you're producing are considered as it's your business.
Right.
So those losses are now deducted against any other earned income that you have. In your case, you could have a spouse that's making $10 million. And you've got all this commercial real estate that you're writing off, you wrote off $6 million instead of 10. Some people just buy $10 million worth of, no, I'm sorry, a lot more commercial real estate to get a $10 million worth of deduction, for example.
Wow.
That again, it's a strategy. It's not for everyone. You have to have a tax advisor. You have to have people you're talking to, and to really surround yourself with professionals. Like, hey, this is business.
Correct.
Yeah, it applies
Does
for
the
both.
same apply to residential? Is there like the timeline?
You mean commercial? It's residential property is just like
Residential-
the commercial. 100%.
So what's the
Cost
timeline?
segregations. Oh, you mean the depreciation?
27 years?
Yeah, depreciation for residential property is 27 and a half years. So same scenario, you bought something for $2 million. Instead of dividing it by 39 years, you divide it by 27 and a half years. But again,
But
if you
that's residential investment or personal?
investment. And the personal, you don't get a depreciation. The personal, you just get a write-off personal tax.
What are the
Property
benefits?
taxes and mortgage interest.
What are the benefits of owning your own home?
We talked about this already.
So what can you write off?
You keep pushing on that.
You keep pushing on that. So what do we write off?
We can write off
utilities?
Yes, no. You can write off utilities.
Okay.
So people that own a home, they have to understand. Like some people say, I'm getting a home, so I'm going to get a nice tax write-off. Not anymore. It's not like it used to be before Trump was president the first time.
So
Because he did change something that actually did affect a lot of middle class people, I would say. And so this is what it affected. So I'm just going to give an example. Okay. So let's just take a couple that makes $250,000 on a W-2. Fair to say?
Yeah.
$250,000, both $125 each, whatever, doesn't matter.
Right.
If you live in New York State, especially if you live in New York City, you pay roughly about 10% in state and city taxes.
Right.
We got that straight, right?
Right.
So that state and city income tax, which is $25,000, used to be a write-off.
Not anymore.
Now, after the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that was passed by President Trump in 2018, they said, no, we can only limit it to $10,000. Because what it used to happen is that you were able to write off the $25,000 plus the property taxes that you paid on top of it. So let's say you live in Regal Park, Forest Hills area. Your property tax, what do they go for right now? 10,000, 15, right? So it was 25,000, which you paid on your W-2 to state and city, plus 15,000 in property and state taxes, a nice $40,000 write-off. So if you own a home, you're like, wow, I can now itemize, I can now deduct it.
Right.
A really nice benefit. Forget
Right.
mortgage interest for now.
Right.
After Tax Cuts and Jobs Act in 2018, President Trump limited it to $10,000.
Oh.
So a lot of people have lost out on it. So whatever you pay in state and city and property taxes, the max you can write off is $10,000. So that's called a SALT tax, right? It's a cap. So by the way, good news is that now that he won the election, he said he's going to get rid of it. He said during his campaign. We'll see if this
Let's
happens.
sit tight and watch.
Yeah, so because it will help a lot of families for sure.
Right.
A lot of families are, I would say, struggling a lot from our tax code.
Of course.
And I'm talking about families that are, working hard families, making
Right.
200, 250,000, whatever that is.
middle class.
I used to have a situation where I had a single mom that makes and I'm talking about the tax law at that time, which was let's say 5-6 years ago, which is still the same. But the limits changed. But anyways, makes $95,000. Sends a daughter to college, single mom. She can get a tax credit. Her income I think at that time the limit was $85,000.
Wow. So she's off by a few thousand.
She's off by a few $1,000s. Now she can get this simple $2,500 tax credit. Why? Because she's making over the threshold. Even right now, we have these laws that you can get a child tax credit, which is basically if you have children under the age of 17, you get $2,000 for them. You can get a child tax credit if your taxable income is more than $400,000. So basically, they're saying that if you make $400,000 and more, you don't qualify. You literally don't qualify.
So you can write off any of your children's...
You're not getting credits. By the way, write-off for children went away with Tax Cuts and Jobs Act with Trump. Before, you used to get a deduction for them and a small credit. They basically got rid of the deduction and gave you a larger credit, $2,000, which is okay.
Right.
I saw the logic in that. It was
Right.
fine. But then they limited it. So if you make $400,000, so you can imagine a lot of couples that are working hard, or let's say a doctor and a nurse, for example, right? And they make $500,000 together. Bam, they pay the highest tax possible.
So the only way to shelter that is to buy commercial real estate.
is to start.
Final verdict.
Final verdict is not only commercial real estate, but we also talked about here with you about short-term rentals, right?
Yes.
You just have to speak to somebody who can say, if you do this, you can get a tax write-off.
Right.
That's it. You can make a $500,000. You can still write off the real estate that you buy. But what's your strategy? Is one of your spouses, so to speak, a real estate professional, meets the IRS definition, or are you doing the short-term rental? So, like, taxes is the biggest thing.
Short-term rental, do you refer also to Airbnbs?
Yeah, so anything that can be rented on places like Airbnb, VRBO, or even privately, as long as on the IRS definition, if the average stay per tenant is 7 days or less. So let's say, for example, you've got a guest in your Airbnb. Stayed 2 days. The second guest stayed 10 days. The average is 6 days, right? It's less than 7 days. That's qualification number one. Qualification number two, you have to materially participate in your real estate. That means you can't just hire a management company. So it's very hard to do this if you want to get a property in Florida, because the IRS says, no, well, you got to work in your property a little bit if you want to treat it as a business, as a short-term rental. So you've got to participate 100 hours a year, which is easily met if you have 1 or 2 properties and you're the one managing it, booking it, and, calling the cleaning crew to come clean up after the... So, like, I've consulted clients as well. Like, hey, well, you've got this income, you can write it off. Both of you cannot be in real estate by commercial or residential because you're not going to get a write-off. Your motivation is a write-off, right? Remember we talked about?
Right.
Everybody have goals. So I said short-term. So then short-term becomes a great tax strategy.
Amazing, amazing. Boris, what about mortgage write-off, the interest on the mortgage?
That is also tax write-off on your personal residence, up to a certain amount. If your mortgage is too high, like over $750,000, that is not a write-off. I take it back. That is a write-off. It's limited. There's a cap.
So if anybody buys a $5 million house?
If they buy a $5 million house and they have a $4 million mortgage on it, they won't be able to deduct the entire interest on it.
I give up on everything.
What do you mean?
Because there's so many loopholes, like, it's very hard.
So why you give up? You should push forward.
I'm just pushing it into you and you deal with it.
That's it.
I'm just going to go back to my marketing and sales.
Business owners come to me and they sign up to work with us, and there are some business owners that are very diligent. They'll show up and they'll work with you. Amazing, right?
Some of them
Dream
just
clients.
throw it into you.
And some of them are just like you. They say, here it is. I'm going to go back to my marketing. And then the next year they come back like, I don't understand. Why is my tax bill this high? I'm like, well, you haven't shown up to any meeting. You haven't done the things that I asked you. I can't do this for you. You know what I tell my clients? At the end, I tell them it takes 2 to tango.
Yes.
That's it.
I'm just joking.
I know.
That's what I'm learning.
But you're joking, but it's true cases like this with people.
Of
Like
course.
they think, hey, I'm going to hire myself a tax advisor.
Right.
I'm good. I'm gold.
Yes, absolutely.
It doesn't work that way.
Absolutely. Well, Boris, you've poured out so much information today. I really am thankful and grateful for that. What would be one piece of advice you could give to our youth that is right now on the position where they are about to get married, or they're looking to buy real estate, or they're just looking to open up a business? Can it be all done at once?
Can everything be done at once?
Talking about balance. Remember we talked about balance?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think you need to take step at a time. But my advice would be to youth, like you said, is never give up.
Choose wisely your significant other half.
Yeah, that could be too. We can get into that also. Right? But first of all, never give up. Whether you have a significant half or you don't have a significant half, or you're choosing one not, but there will be a lot of obstacles for everyone. Every youth has different obstacles.
Should one wait for tax purposes?
You're bombarding me with questions. Now letting me finish. Should one wait for tax purposes? What, to get married?
Yeah.
For tax purposes?
Yes.
Just purely for tax purposes? It depends. I have a story also about that as well. I had a client last year. I'm like, how long you been with this woman? He's like an attorney from another state. And he's like, 15 years. I'm like, you planning to get married to her? He's like, she's the love of my life. I'm like, if you marry her, you're going to save $35,000 on taxes. He's like, seriously? I'm like, yeah. He's like, but I don't want to get married to her just because I'm going to save. He's like, I'll think about it. A few weeks later, he sends me a video. They have this holiday party in December. He gets on one knee in front of the whole office.
December purposely before the end of the year?
Yes, before December 31st. And then I'm like, I told him, I'll make sure not to tell your wife why you proposed. But yeah, it has its tax benefits, especially when one spouse makes more than the other spouse. Merit filing jointly puts you in a better tax bracket. So a lot of people joke around about this, but there's also actually a strategy about this for this. If spouses make about equally the same, let's say both make 200 or whatever that is, equally the same or almost equally the same, there's very little tax benefits. It's okay. You can either file separately or joint. You're not going to lose out on either or. But if one has significantly more income than the other and then decides to file separately, the one that has a significantly more income will be hurt on taxes.
Wow, this was a talk show to remember forever.
You're ending it already? You said we're going to go on for like 3 hours. I'm joking. Let's end this.
I know you have a client to attend to, and I want to honor your time. Boris, what would be one piece of advice on reading books or any literature that you would advise anyone who is starting their business journey to become a business owner? Any specific books? Any mentors you follow?
Yeah, I'm not going to name specific books, but I'd like to share the category of books I believe people that like should.
be?
Yeah. What I've found really helpful for myself is first of all motivational books, and second of all also productivity books.
Any specific orders?
Any specific orders depends where you are in your business. So if you're just starting out, probably some motivational books you can read. I think you mentioned Tony Robbins earlier.
Grant
Right? He's got
Cardone.
great books. Grant Cardone has a lot of great books. I've read his 10X Rule, for example. That was one of the first motivational books that I read. But right now, like my book literature, for example, my book library is a little bit different. It's more like, learning more about finances, learning more about productivity at work, team management. So depending where you are. But I believe that, and I strongly believe this, that a person can learn a lot from reading books. And I'm not a reader myself, even though like I'm in a tax law and stuff. I do Audible. It's the best thing.
So you listen.
100%. Yeah, I don't read the books. I at least I don't know where you have time to read.
I know.
But like you listen, you're on the go, you're
Yes.
doing whatever. We have so much time actually.
Absolutely.
If you really think about it, you're on the go or whatever that
car,
may be. Yeah.
traveling.
Feeding your baby, putting your baby to sleep. You can just pop that AirPod and then like listen, really learn.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's about really implementing and executing your time properly, I think. We all have 24 hours. Talk about budgeting.
Yeah. And
24 hours.
You bring this up, and the productivity book that I recently read, actually that one I'll be very specific, it's one of the best books I read. It's called Who Not How. I don't know if you've read this book.
No, not yet.
So you definitely should read it if you haven't read it. It's like you should download it now. Who Not How. And everybody who's watching this definitely should get it. I've recommended it to some of my friends. They were like blown away.
Who, not how?
Who can you delegate this
Oh.
something to instead of trying to figure out how to do it?
Wow.
Now we're saying it in one sentence. You're like, okay, great, I know the whole book.
Right.
No. You really it hits on every person. I feel like, yeah.
Boris, before we end the show, we briefly spoke about delegation, all right? And our personal challenges. How can we really dedicate our time to be here right now and give back? And how do we really do it, right? So you shared something very significant and important to me that really got me thinking. You have a team.
Correct.
What would be your one piece of advice to anybody who's building a team to manage it in a way that you could now shift your attention to what you're doing now? What did you have to master?
Building a team
Yes.
is delegating. That's I feel like it's a very important challenge, right?
Why?
Why? Because first of all, it depends what are you delegating. In my case, building a team and bringing the team in, I needed to delegate service deliverables, right? So I have clients that I need to do something for them. And now I need to delegate this to another person. It's different when you want to delegate somebody to send emails on your behalf, right? Or then when you have to delegate to, now you service my client. So that was very challenging because it was very hard for me to let go. This is my client, and I know how to service him, and I don't think anybody can do a better job than me. And I had to let that notion go because there are people that are better than you, and they may not have your style. That's what I've learned. People don't have my style, right? But they will still get the client to a better outcome.
Right.
So if you're worried about the client, it's going to come to a better outcome. So that was the huge challenge for me, is hiring accountants, is saying, now you service this. I still have this issue, but it's just not to the extent that it was before. So I would say that is the most important. And then your culture, right? Building the culture in a company. So if I care enough about the customer, then I need to make sure that my people care enough about the customer. So what kind of culture do I bring into the company? Do I always talk about this customer being, let's say, a non-grateful customer, or he is this, or he's just too complicated, I'm so tired of his stuff? Or am I saying we have to make sure we take care of our clients? Our priority is to save money to our clients. Our priority is to make sure they see the value. Our priority is to make sure we have a great customer service. Our priority is to make sure that they will talk about us. So what I talk about to my team about my clients also builds the culture. So now they're like, I have to take care of the client because Boris takes care of this client and he cares about this client. So I have to take care of it. So that was also a huge challenge, I would say, but it's doable. Yeah.
How many team members you managing now?
Right now it is 15 of us.
What was your biggest accomplishment in the past few years in the business sector?
Past couple of years, I would say one thing that I'm very proud of that we've done is that we brought in a sales team. So that has allowed us to grow. That was a big accomplishment. And I say that it's not about just hiring a sales team, but it's also about putting systems and processes to make sure that they can follow through, and you have basically building a sales machine in the organization where you've got the marketing working and the sales team.
So you could
working.
operate without you being 24/7 there.
100%.
Do you have any kind of literature that you wrote yourself as like a course for your clients?
We have few things on our website that are free for people to use, and some are paid, like $9, I think, but whatever it is. It's on our website at borismtax.com. We've got 7 write-offs for S corporation owners, an S corporation tax book, and all the stuff is on our website. But yeah.
Boris, you talk about this stuff so organically natural. It feels like for you to swim in that ocean is so nice and easy, including your videos. When you record videos with your tips, like the way I listen to you, I'm like, oh my God, it's like singing a song. You're just singing a song. What would be your situation that you could share that, like, is it really that easy?
It is not easy. Like you say, I see like you swimming in the ocean, but you don't realize is how deep that ocean is, or how many holes my boat may have.
Right.
Right.
So
it only looks nice from the far away.
From the
when you
outside.
see that big,
on social media, you're making it look easy.
Everybody, right? Everybody that puts out content, like you're probably going to chop up this content and put on social media, and it's going to look nice, and there's letters are going to pop up. I say this, you laugh, and but how long did it take us to get here?
Correct.
We waited for some technical difficulties to be fixed. I was hungry, and we both got here at the same time. There was an issue with the parking, right? But you don't let these things deteriorate.
Correct.
Deter you. Deter you. But no, it's not easy to make content to show up online. I haven't put out a YouTube video in the past couple of weeks because I've been so busy putting out other fires in the business, so to speak. So making content is hard because you need energy.
Correct.
And you need to give off that energy to the viewers.
Correct.
So there was once we're in a Kaikov Media now. Once I came to do my videos on Kaikov Media.
On the whiteboard, you mean?
On the whiteboard, my famous whiteboard. I took 3 takes on a video.
Wow.
And I said, we're not doing it. I just left. It was just not my day.
Devastated.
It's not that the video content was bad. I was just not there.
In the mood.
In a mood. So if the mood is not there, you can't create content. So yes, we put out a lot of content online, but I don't think anybody that understands the emotional energy you need to have. Like my wife's like, we're running out of shorts, Mariana. So like, we have to do it. Let's put a camera and do it. I'm like, I have to be in the moment. And then we sit down, and then she pulls out a question. I don't know if you heard my short show. We start with, Boris, I have a tax question, right? So I'm sitting there,
I love her.
And then we actually have our video guy. He's making funny bloopers because like she'll read a question. I'm like, правильно, читай вопрос, like we're over there. It's like, I'm trying, ты здесь не так написал, And then again, like a few seconds later, I have to be, so like on the video. So like, it's not as easy. So making content is hard. We don't fight about these things, God forbid, with my wife. But it's just like we have so many of these funny moments that we're actually now making bloopers from it. So I'm curious to see how that comes out.
How long ago did you start?
Doing social media?
Yes.
Really heavily about a year and a half, 2 years ago, really heavily. Before that, I always wanted to, but it was just not enough capacity, not enough manpower, not enough money, not enough resources.
Excuses all the time.
It was not excuses. I was really trying. If you'd go back to my social media content, you will see, like, even though I didn't put out as much, I still put out something. Right. It was like my phone, and I'm just like, completely unprofessional, sitting in my sweater. Just put it out there. Just
start somewhere.
You have to start somewhere. People tell me, Boris, I want to do my video, right? How do I do? It's like, I'm like, how do I change my filters, my lighting? I'm like, you got it all wrong. You just have to turn it on and just go.
Start.
Potom I'm like, don't look at me that I've got a video and I get this pop-ups and the background is so nice. I'm like, all of that came because...
It will come.
Yeah, I decided to get fancy, but without it, it'll do as good. So I would encourage everybody out there that really wants to go on social media, do videos, so promote yourself. Don't hold yourself back. The first video will never be perfect. The second video will be a little bit less perfect. And the third video, and like this, it'll seem like you're swimming in the ocean, like Ole says.
Well, I think I want to highlight a few things, right? I think that from watching your videos, I naturally felt the energy of your love and passion to what you do. And I think that through videos and social media, we have now the gift and ability to radiate that love, right, through everything we put out there.
100%. Clients tell us all the time, I feel connected to Boris even though I don't know him. Like, they speak to my sales team. Like, I feel connected to Boris. Like, I don't know him, but I feel I've watched so many of his videos.
Right.
You're right, that energy.
It radiates. And I think personally and feel that a lot of people are holding their talent dormant. And when people hold their talent dormant, to me, I think you are disservicing, first, God's given gift, second, universe, and the power to really educate and give back to what you are gifted to do in this world, in this earth. And impact with what you're here for, with that ability to change someone's life. Boris, I told you earlier, I'm not doing this for the sake of my own ego satisfaction. I could be doing 100 of other things. Trust me, sitting down in my office and calling my clients and really chit-chatting with them on their passion for real estate, it's definitely something I do enjoy. But the reason why I decided to make that commitment to do what I do right now is because somewhere, somehow, I hear younger generation talking to me when they see me, let's say, shopping, or they see me somewhere at the parties, and they come up to me and they say, oh my God, I get so inspired by you.
It's like you came up to me, right?
Yes. How do you do it? And that's exactly what it is, Boris.
Yeah.
Like when I walked to this Emmett event, I remember the moment I walked into that event. My cousin invited me over. I had no idea what Emmett is at all. I'm ashamed to say that.
Yeah.
Had no idea that Emmett is like that huge Jewish organization that does so much for the youth. Mm-hmm. And then when I saw you and your wife to be like the top donors, and my cousin, I got very mesmerized, and I told my husband, I said, today I will find somebody who's going to come in on my show and to give back with the same passion and belief that I have. Because I think it's like a magnet, right? Like you need to find like-minded people who will have the same drive and ability to feel like they want to give back. And that's how I found you, discovered you, and we started this passion towards giving. Yeah. So I want to say really, truly thank you, because it's not comes from a point of natural ego satisfaction. It comes in from the area where you identify who you are and what you're here to do and really give back. Maybe somewhere, somehow, you will motivate one person that day that will impact their life in the time of need.
Yeah, 100%.
So, Boris, I want to say thank you.
Thank you for having me on your show.
Thank you very, very much for watching. It was my true pleasure to interview the one and only Boris who is very famous on social media. He's pouring with his wife his time and his soul to really give back all his knowledge and information. The tax season is on the way, so there will be a lot of good information. So follow him, subscribe, and share. And of course, follow your one and only Olga Zakinova, who is here always to invite, produce, and deliver the good quality content so we could always educate you and share everything that we possibly can. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.